So let's start creating a new file. Let's call this file basic coding tools.py. Okay. Don't use space when you are giving a name to a file. Remember that. And let's start with some basic tools that every programmer must know. Okay. The first one is a comment. Not everything that you write inside of your text file must be executable, must be code, right? Sometimes you need to comment your code. Sometimes you need to add some notes to the code, both to explain what the code does, but also to remember what you must implement later, So this is pretty common when you're programming. And to write something that is a comment inside of your file, you use hash, alright? So when you put hash, you can write, let's put this here, you can write anything here, okay? We have autocomplete function here, so sometimes it's going to appear some random code. But anyway, if you put some hash and write anything, this code is not gonna run. So you can explain things. So below I'm going to ask to tell your age. So print autocomplete age receives 30, print age. Alright, so if I run this code, Python basic coding tools.py, you can see that the only code that runs is the line 2, the line 3, and the line 1 is skipped. Alright, so you can also use comments when you don't want a piece of code anymore, but you want to still have the code in your code base. So for example, age next year age receives age plus 1. So let's suppose that I don't want to run this next year age right here. I can comment, the code is still here, but it's not going to run. It's not going to run. Okay, so if I run a file, I can see that the same thing happens. Even if I put like print next year age, here we're going to see the two ages because I'm assigning the value to the variable and printing. If I comment the print and save it, even if I don't comment the attribution of the variable, it doesn't appear because I've commented the print. Okay, but as long as I'm not printing, I'm going to comment also the next. Okay, so this code is still here. I don't miss the code, but it's commented and it's not gonna run. Let me run again to show you, and you're gonna see only 30. Okay, that's how comments work in Python. So you probably noticed that when I start typing some code now, the Visual Code Platform suggests some random code, and it's only random because I'm starting to type, but you can try it out later and see that as we are coding, it understands what we are coding and predicts what we are probably going to code next. This is the suggestions tool. Alright, so this is one of the other basic coding tools nowadays. Alright, a couple years ago, this was not a huge feature in VS Code because it didn't work well, but now we are living in the age of AI, so basically it predicts exactly what we want to write. Sometimes I get scared because it's like VS Code is reading my mind, so this is an option, but I strongly recommend you to deactivate this function when you're starting, right? Because you need to know what your code is doing, and as the suggestions gets better and as the suggestions improves, basically they code for you. Alright, so you start coding, you write 1, 2, 3 lines of code, and from there on AI suggests for you, the autocomplete function of Visual Code suggests you, and with a accuracy level that is scary, and you just press tab and complete your code. Alright, so to disable this function for now, you can press Ctrl Shift P, and here you can type disable inline suggestions. Basically, this is the first option here. Alright, if it's enabled, right? I guess it is because you probably installed the most recent version of Visual Code, so you already have this function set, this option set. So I'm going to select this option here. Okay, so now you can see that I can type anything. It doesn't suggest. But remember, this is a basic coding tool, right? So if you want to enable again, you can do the same thing. Ctrl Shift P and type enable inline suggestions. Right? Click again, and now type anything, and it suggests. Okay, so print hello world. All right, so again, you can use this tool because it's nowadays it's a basic coding tool, but for some coding interviews the recruiter doesn't allow to use it. Even for you to remember to consolidate your knowledge in some syntax details, it's more difficult for you if you start typing and the autocomplete shows you what you need to do. Okay, so it's a good feature, it's a great feature for helping you to get more productive when you are coding. But if you are starting now, if you are studying code now, if you need to consolidate your knowledge, I recommend you to disable this function and force your brain to remember how to do things. Okay, so use this tool with responsibility. This is the autocomplete basic tool. Another coding tool that I want to show you is the IO tool. Alright, you already saw the print, that is the O part of this example, that is the output. Alright, so we can process code, we can assign data to variables, you can calculate them, and then we can print. Okay, you've already seen this. We can print and have our output through our terminal. All right, but we can also input data. So I/O is basically the ability to input data to your code through your terminal, and output is showing data in your terminal based on your code. All right, input and output. So basically, let's comment these examples that we have before here. So this is a comment. Okay. This is an input. So we can call the function input. And we can write something here. As you have seen, my autocomplete suggested us to write what's your name. But let's put another thing. So for example, how old are you? Right? If we save it and we run the code, we have the print age here, and we have the question, how old are you? You can see this cursor right here. I can type anything, right? And remember that I can type anything. The question is how old are you, but I can type what I want. Okay, but let's type my age. So I've just sent a data through my terminal to my code. Okay, but what happened? The code received and stopped because I didn't do anything with this data. So we can assign this input into a variable to store the data that is inputted. Okay, so age receives input, how old are you? So this question is going to appear here. The user is going to type the answer, and the answer is going to be stored here in this variable. And if we want to see, we can print age. Okay, so let's run the code and see what happens. 30 is my previous age here, right? But now I'm going to put another value into the variable age. So how old are you? 31, for example. If I press enter, you can see that if I print again the age, it is going to be the data that I typed here, right? So this is input and output. But there's something important for you to see right now. Every time that you use this input, the data type of the data that you are going to type here is going to be a string. Okay, it's going to be a string. So if I try to calculate this age, like age plus 1, you are going to see that, how old are you? 31. We have a type error. You can only concatenate string, not int. So you typed 30 without quotes, with no quotes. So you probably thought, if I'm typing without quotes, it is an integer, as I taught you in the last lesson, right? But when you are typing through the terminal using the input function, every data that you type is a string. Okay, so you can apply a technique here that is called typecasting or type conversion. Okay, and I'm going to show you how type conversion technique works. Sometimes you need to convert the data type from a specific data. In this example, we have typed our age here through the input function, and we know that everything that you type through the input function is a string, even if it is a number, okay? It becomes a string, so you cannot calculate a string like adding, like making an addition operation, because you cannot sum a one text with a one number, okay? So we can apply a technique that is called typecasting or type conversion. So I can basically pass this input here as a parameter into the function int. Int is a data type, but you can also call a function int. Basically, if you pass a string inside of an int function, the result of this is converting the string to an int. Of course, if it is a number, alright? So if I save this now, you can see that int input how old are you, that is going to receive a number, but as long as it's been passed through the input function, through the terminal, it is going to be a string. It is going to be converted to an int because it's inside of the int function. So age is going to be an int. Simple as that, all right? So let's run again. Let's clean first. Let's run. How old are you? 31. Now we have the output of this operation. Age plus 1 now works because we converted the string. Instead of doing this, how old are you? 31, and getting this error, type error, we converted int. Alright, we have converted and we have the output the right way, right? The problem here is if I pass a text here, how old are you? I am 30. I'm going to have a problem because I'm trying to convert literally a text, not only the data type string, but the text, the I am part of this data to int, and this is not possible. I can convert a number that is a string because I passed through the input, and everything I passed through the input is a string, but I cannot convert a word to a number, okay? This is not possible. So we have another error here. We've seen before the type error, now we are seeing the value error, okay? So this is how you convert, but these are the limitations. You can do the same thing with the other data types that you already know, okay? You can typecast, you can type convert an int to a float to an int, a string if it is a number to an int to a float, okay? So you can try it out and test some combinations to practice how it works. Now I'm gonna show you one of the most important tools that a developer must know, alright? That is the debug tool, alright? You probably already noticed that the speed that your computer runs your code, our brains are not capable of following the step-by-step processing, right? Let me show you. For example, if I print here some text and print hi, hello, how are you, print your age is age. We have here 1, 2, 3, 4 prints and one variable attribution. We have like a comment. So we have 6 lines of code basically. All right. If I run this, you're gonna see that in 1 second, the 6 lines of code were executed. Our brains are not capable of following this computational speed. All right, but sometimes you need to see the computer running your code line by line to inspect some problem, to investigate, to find some bug in an application. So when you are a professional developer, you deal with huge applications, with many applications that are integrated, that has dozens of files, that has hundreds of files, that has thousands of lines of code inside of each file. So your brain is not capable of understanding where is the bug if you don't control the execution of each line. And that's where the debug tool comes in. The debug allows you to control line by line, so you can tell your code, run the first line. Your code, the computer runs your first line and stops, and you can evaluate what happened and then run the next, evaluate again, run the next, and so on. All right, so you can run line by line of your code while you are watching what the computer is doing. Right? This is a powerful tool for developers, and you must know how to use them. Okay? So the first thing, you need to press F5 in your keyboard. All right? And it's not the letter F and the number 5. It's the function 5 key in your keyboard. All right? It's going to appear this option here, and you can click in Python debugger. Okay? So you can click in Python file, and this option here is going to appear. All right? You can see that my terminal is changing a little bit, right? My terminal now is in debug mode. All right? So my code just ran, but I didn't see line by line. So the first thing is activating the debug, but the second thing is adding a breakpoint. What is a breakpoint? Is the place that you want your code to stop, and from there on you control the execution. All right? So I want my code to stop here in this line, print hi. How do I add a breakpoint? I'm going to click here in this little red button, in this little red circle. You can see here, if I put my cursor here, I see that the suggestion of clicking to add a breakpoint appears. So I do it in the front of the line, that I want to stop. So here I click, and you can see that the circle becomes more red. All right, and now I have a breakpoint. So if I press F5 again, you're going to see that it is gonna run, but it is going to stop exactly in the line that I want. All right, so my code is stopped. I just told to my computer to run and stop and wait for me to control the execution. So we can see here that we have some control buttons, and basically this one right here, continue, it is going to set the execution free, so it is going to continue till the end. All right, let me press F5 again. This option right here, step over, is the option that allows us to run line by line. Okay, so we can click here, but we can also press F10 in our keyboard. So you can click, and you can see in the terminal, pay attention in the terminal, when I click, it runs this print, right? So you can see in the left side basically what is happening. So now my variable age received 30. Now my print hi was executed, and I'm stopped in print hello. Let's press F10 again. You can see my hi here. Let me show you here. So my hi line, my print hi line was executed, my print hello line was executed, but I'm stopped now in this. If I press F10, my how are you, my print how are you line was executed, and so on. If I run the last line, it is going to execute and finish my program. All right, so basically that's how you debug. You can see that we have, let me press F5 again, we have another control options. So for example, we have the step into, but this option right here, for now, I don't recommend you to try it, right? Because basically every function in Python has inner workings, and if you try to deal with the inner workings of each function now, you're going to be too confused, right? I don't recommend it. When we start coding with modular programming, for example, when we import modules and reuse functions in other modules, then we can try the step into option, right? But for now, as long as you are just writing line by line code, the step over is the option for you, right? So you can write any code you want here, how many lines of code you want, and you can, let me stop it and let me run the debug again, F5 with the breakpoint here. I can control with F10 the execution line by line. So we can see here, hi, hello, how are you, hi, hello, how are you, your age is, anyway, all right, line by line, instead of just running. Let me get out of the execution mode. So we can, here we can see Python debug console, we can kill, and we get back to our normal terminal, right? So I can run it again, and in a matter of seconds, in a matter of less than a second, all my 38 lines were executed. All right, so this is the power of debugging. This is a tool that you must know from now on, and you must use. You must incorporate in your toolbox as a programmer. If you don't use the debug tool, your life as a developer is going to be way more difficult than it could be. All right, so this is a must, is a tool that you must get used and use every time when you're programming. To finish this lesson, I'm gonna show you two things that are important, two basic tools, all right? The first one is the extension or the extensions, because There are many ones. Basically, an extension is a plugin that you can install in your Visual Code to help you code better. Basically, that's what a extension does. And when I say better, I'm talking about code, but I'm also talking about productivity, right? So to install any extension, you can press Ctrl Shift X, right? Ctrl Shift X. It is going to open this extensions area right here, and you can search for the extension that you want to install. So after this lesson, you can Google like the most important extensions for Python developers, right? But for now, I'm going to show you the second thing, that is the extension that I recommend you to install now, all right? That is the PyLint, all right? So search for PyLint here, click install, and then click mine already installed, but you can click install and wait for it to install. So PyLint is an extension that helps you to write your Python code in a better way. What do I mean by that? Python has its own style of coding, right? There are some little rules that if you are starting programming right now, or if you are a programmer that knows other programming languages and you are starting with Python right now, you're probably going to face some situations where the details that you already know in other languages are not good in Python. All right, so for example, the name of the variables or the methods, the functions, that if you're starting now is something that you're gonna see. All right, be patient. But if you already know how to program in other languages, for example, in Java, some objects, some functions, they use like camel case structure of writing, right? In Python, we use snake case, you know. So this is just an example, but PyLint helps you to write better code in general, both talking about the beautiful code, but also the functional code, right? Let's see an example. So I just installed PyLint, and I can see here that we already have a tip from PyLint. You can see that in my code here, PyLint is telling me that my constant name doesn't conform uppercase naming style. What does that mean? It means that for the Python style guide of programming, age first is not a variable, it's a constant. Why? Because I put a value and I just printed this value. I didn't modify this value. So why would that be a variable? This is not a variable. This is a constant. All right? And if it is a constant, the style to write constants in Python, we don't use lowercase, we use uppercase. So if it is a constant, I should probably write like this, age, you know? So in this case, you can see that, let me get rid of this. Let's use just part of this code. So we can see here that that tip that PyLint was telling us previously disappeared, all right? So from now on, this is gonna happen every time we write a code. PyLint is going to look and tell us, this is not good enough for Python. Change for another structure, change to another way, all right? So it's not the same thing of autocomplete, but it helps a lot, right? Because you write your code and PyLint gives you a tip a hint, right, to improve and to look more Pythonic. So these are the two things to finish our lesson. First, extensions. You can use it as a basic coding tool, installing extensions that makes your life easier, right? And PyLint specifically, that is an extension that forces you to write Python code the more Pythonic way possible, all right? The most Pythonic way that is possible. And that's it for today. These are some of the real interviews that I recorded to show you how real companies interview developers from inside. Use them to prepare for real interviews and get the job of your dreams. Go to marosacademy.com or click the link below.